Welcome to a new episode of Ghoulish. My name is Max Booth, a host, and today on the program I am talking with Trevor Henderson, aka Slimy Swamp Ghost. If you don't know who that is, hey, stop hiding in a rock. He creates all these fucking amazing, frightening, found footage images and he posts them online. I can almost guarantee you've seen some at one point in your short life. On this episode, we're talking about how he began doing all of that. We're talking about the man with the upside down face. We're talking about the differences between daylight horror and horror set during the night. We're talking about spooky things. Super spooky things. You are not ready for how spooky this episode is. You will never be ready. So enjoy! Hey Trevor, do you want to talk about cursed images with me?
I absolutely would love to.
Thank God. That would have been awkward if you said nope. I would have had to say okay, goodbye.
Very short call, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and admit my ignorance right now. And when I invited you to be on this podcast, I mostly knew you from Twitter. I love the images you post.
Oh, thanks.
Last night I thought, I gotta do some more research on this guy. Holy shit, man. You have a fucking TV tropes page.
I do, yeah. There's a lot of pages that have popped up completely independent of my control or knowledge in a lot of cases that are baffling when I find them and stumble across them. There's like entries on a villains wiki, and there's like a in progress wiki on me that I stumbled upon and was kind of baffled by. It's weird. It's really weird.
So you also have a subreddit dedicated to you as well. How does all this feel? This is pretty cool.
Most of the time I don't I don't even know what to think about it, and then I'll stumble across it and it'll be like it's just really bizarre. It's like finding a hidden message in a wall or something and you had no idea about at all. It's just really, really bizarre most of the time.
Yeah, imagine that, finding a hidden message in a wall and the message is dedicated to stuff that you've done.
Yeah, it's kind of the internet equivalent, the electronic equivalent of that, yes.
You ever find anyone talking about stuff that you've done that you have no memory of?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There'll be Wikipedia entries or a whole lore dump on a monster I drew one time and didn't think about again 3 years ago, and people have named it and established a relationship it has to other characters that I also barely remember drawing at all. It's really weird. It's really weird, honestly.
That sounds super strange. I can imagine how odd that would feel. I mean, yeah. Have you come across any entries for things you haven't made yet?
Oh God, that'll be the day. Photos I drew from 2022, assuming we're still, around for that.
Yeah, that's a big assumption you're making.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't take that for granted.
No, you cannot. I want to go back a bit and talk about how you began first making these images, what inspired them, and how they began to originally take off.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it was in 2018 or early 2018. Um, I was kind of doing a completely different style, this really like harsh white on black ghost drawings. I just released a book of those, and then I just had an idea one day to see, because I'm a huge fan of found footage horror films. I wanted to see if I could kind of recreate like the very characteristic kind of scare you would get in a found footage film of like seeing a monster in a grainy in the background of a grainy shot, like kind of like the money shot of a found footage horror film, and see if I could just recreate that by just drawing it, and then make up a little bit of flavor text to go underneath, just to give it context. And it did really, really well. I drew this image of I didn't use photos at first. It was just a full drawing of like a night vision of a forest at night with all these arms coming around trees. And then I, just used the restraint of how few characters you can write on Twitter, and just did a little like one post bit of flavor underneath. And it did really, really well, more than any of my other drawings had kind of done before. So I just kind of started doing that for a while. And I did a bunch that were just drawn for like a month or two. And then I started using photos, and just to kind of see how well I could blend it together to make a cohesive image. And that added a whole other element where people on Twitter could kind of send in photos as long as I credited them underneath. And it became like, oh, you can send in an image of like your bedroom, and then this guy will draw on like the spooky monster there. So it became like a novelty, and it kind of took off even more, I think. And then I did so many of those. I think I've done like 500 or so now.
Good God.
Yeah, like just consistently. Like there was a time for months when I was doing 4 or 5 a day, every day, for like months. And not all of them were very good. And I can't look at a lot of the older ones, but yeah. So I have this huge breadth of a spooky creep in a corner of a dark bedroom photos now on my desktop.
I hope. I can't decide if I hope you do or do not get raided by the Canadian equivalent of the FBI.
They'll be like, "What?" It'll be a little baffling, maybe. Yeah, yeah, they might have some questions.
I was going to ask you about how you got all the images, but you just answered that. I wasn't positive if they were just stock images or ones you just went around taking, but that's pretty
Yeah,
cool. They would just send them in.
yeah. At first, it was just photos I took like on my walk home from my job at night, and but since I don't usually go too far from my house, they became kind of samey pretty quick. So having like people in other countries and other parts of the world like be able to send in stuff really gave the whole thing legs it wouldn't have had otherwise, because it would have been just like the same car park near my house over and over again otherwise.
It also feels like it's become more of a like a community project that way as well, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Just recently there was a YouTube video from Markiplier, who's like a really big video game YouTuber guy, that was just about him and another guy trying to do exactly one of those photos in 30 minutes, and then issuing like a challenge to their video game community to see what they could do, which is just like super flattering and again baffling. But it's cool that like it's been picked up as kind of this like style or challenge.
Okay, so going back to the photos, do you
Yeah.
already have something in mind as far as creature design, or do you kind of improvise based on the background of the photo?
Oh, I absolutely improvise. There's very few where I have any idea what I'm doing beforehand or during even. I guess the only thing that I choose beforehand is that some of the photos I do will be like more like like a big scenic shots of like a horizon. So I'll try and do like a bigger, like kaiju sized kind of Lovecraftian or cosmic horror monster in those, and then I'll just have to decide what kind. But if it's like a more intimate, like a bedroom or something, then I have no idea, and I just kind of just try and make it up as I go and draw directly on the photo. No sketch or anything.
Do you read a lot of Lovecraftian hill fiction?
I like cosmic horror. I
Yeah.
haven't read Lovecraft since high school, but I love cosmic horror. It's like one of my favorite subgenres of horror fiction. It's a little bit harder. I'm probably just not reading the right people, but it's hard to find these days a little bit. But I love it. Yeah, that's like my favorite, one of my favorite kinds.
Yeah, same. I have this issue where I always call anything cosmical Lovecraftian because yeah, that's absolutely what I meant to ask you. I don't mean Lovecraft himself. I
Oh
also
yeah, no,
don't read him either.
that's okay. It's like it's kind of the go-to,
Yeah,
for better or worse.
you have come up with a cast of recurring kills. Now, was this
Yeah.
something that you like consciously decided upon, or just like were they specific designs that you just kept falling back on, and over time they became fan favorites?
Absolutely both.
Okay.
Because like on one hand, yeah, there are a couple characters that I really liked, and then I liked kind of putting them in the back of my mind and being able to return to those characters again. And it's almost like checking in on where they are in the world at this point by putting them in another photo and giving them like a new bit of flavor text. And then yeah, definitely like 3 or 4 or 5 completely caught on, and that also motivated it. But a big part of it also was that I have like, the things that I find scary. So like design elements kept popping up over and over again. And I was like, oh, that's his brother. That's why that looks the same as the other one. It's not recursive design choices. It's a whole sprawling mythos.
That's something I find when I do interview people with like big fan bases like this, especially on the internet with ongoing killer tools. Most of the time, they have no intention of connecting any of them. It's mostly just by accident, and they just go with it.
Totally. Yeah, it absolutely. Yeah, I enjoy and have to be really careful about that because like people will run with whatever I say on one errant like Twitter post, and it will become like the religious law for like a potential entire universe. So I have to be really careful. But I do like the fact that it's been taken as like this connected kind of lore or mythology.
It has to feel heavy, I guess, knowing that whatever you put out is gonna just become this food to be eaten by this fucking massive fan base you've developed.
Oh God, it's petrifying. And the flip side of that is if you don't put stuff out, if you just kind of leave the mystery hanging, then there are droves of people who will step in and do it for you, and then thousands of people will think that you made that up yourself, for better or worse. And there's been a lot of really amazing fan projects, but like yeah, the pressure to add lore, especially to characters like Siren Head, is very omnipresent. Otherwise, someone else will do it for me.
That brings me to a similar question I had was like, do you have much serial background that's not, say, published or written about some of these guys before and after you make these images?
Most of it happens afterwards, depending on the character. Like some of them are just like there's nothing there. They're just usually the ones that are in like 1 or 2 images. It's a spooky design I like. But I like I'll reserve the right to fill that in later, I guess. But some of the ones that have been around for a while, like Siren Head and Longhorse, have a bit more of a definite idea. Maybe not like their specifics, but like the kind of character I would want them to be if I actually sat down and wrote it out. Um, like Siren Head has a definite like cosmic horror back,
Absolutely.
background in mind, for me, that I haven't really talked about. Actually, same with Longhorse. Both of those two.
I quite like the design of Longclaws, how he's just never ending. It's really cool and totally cosmic.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like a roving time space anomaly where like the physics make no sense at its center and it just continues forever. And like the amount of questions I'll get or had I used to get were just like, where is Longhorse's body? Like what happens around a corner? And I'm like, that's the point. It's like it breaks all. It's supposed to break all logic.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
when does a line end? It doesn't end. It keeps going. That's what
yeah,
makes it so
exactly.
much fun. Like you don't want to read a cosmic Ghoul story and go, okay, but what happened after he
Yeah.
screamed in petrified hole? You don't want to find. You don't want to know every single thing.
Absolutely,
It
yeah. And
ruins
like
it.
It does, and like there's almost like a fervent need for some of that. Despite like if you give that information, most of those people would probably turn around and say like, well, that is not as exciting as if you hadn't said it, and it was the mystery was preserved. So it's a constant battle.
Do you consider all these spooky guys like in the same universe?
Um, yeah, more. There's like two different, just in my head, kind of canonical universes where like most of them are in one, and then the other ones that are like the really really big guys are in a separate kind of thing, which is supposed to be like this kind of supposed to be like our universe. But this cosmic horror has happened where these giant beings have busted through into our reality from another dimension. But at the same time, life is just going on. It's like kind of like trying to be like these cosmic monsters amid mundane events, like people trying to get to work in their commute and everything.
I like the giants. You have one that I'm thinking of now when the guy's neck is bent and the caption is like breaking news.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorites. I love that thing.
Really funny.
Yeah, again, I'd like to do more with that, but I think anything else on top would just lessen it.
Kind of hoping we get some giants soon in this universe.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if July came and that just happened at this point.
Would it even make front page news at this point?
Well,
Giants.
We had aliens basically confirmed, and then everyone was like, "We're busy. Like, we can't deal with this right now. Please."
That was baffling, man. I couldn't believe it. It was like everything I wanted in my childhood is today, and no one is saying anything.
Yep. And I think like last week there was a report. There was like a repetitive signal from space, and then like there was another thing about how they found like structures deep in the earth, and everyone's just like, everything's on fire. We cannot think about this right now. Please, please.
It makes me think like actual newspapers could publish these images you've made as news, and no one would even blink. They would go, "Yeah, what the fuck else is new?"
Yeah, pretty much. This might as well happen, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. One guy I do want to talk about that you've made. I don't want to dig in too much into like the mythos of all of your creations because I do think you're right. It is better to leave a lot of it a mystery. But I'm pretty fascinated by the man with the upside down face, who you have described as the patron saint of car wrecks. Could you elaborate on that?
The idea of that was just supposed to be this like some of the monsters and stuff I make are more ambiguous in their nature. Like I like the idea of like not all of them are just horrible monsters. And I think that when a monster is designed for a movie or something, and you can tell it's just like made to kill people, it's not as interesting as something that has more like a different behavioral traits and stuff. But this particular thing is just this supposed to be awful, horrible, like Lynchian Black Lodge kind of entity that just exists to make people really upset and is like kind of like a low level psychic parasite that like thrives off of like small tragedies like car wrecks and little deaths, like misfortunes, just like an awful, pathetic, horrible thing. I just wanted to make an awful, horrible, pathetic thing. And just like having one person, like a normal person who's one feature is completely flipped like that is just really upsetting to me on a visceral level.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing was that I wanted to have a monster specifically I could put in like really grainy crowd scenes, public domain crowd scenes, like black and white photos. Because most of the other photos are just kind of like there aren't people in them, and I really want to do one that like used crowds in a really hopefully interesting way, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great
that.
idea. Yeah. I think on Twitter you described him as a petty asshole, which made me laugh.
Yeah, he's horrible. He's just a bad. It's just not a noble evil. Just like this wretched thing is supposed to be.
Yeah, I think he stands out so much because he is so different from the stuff you usually do. At least with the limited motives that we can gain from like the times he's popped up in images, which is really cool. It's really cool that the not readers but the audience is able to gain these motives and stories just from a limited point of view that we get.
Yeah, it's all about like I love stuff where they just tease you with just a certain amount of information, just enough to like get your imagination going, I guess.
Yeah, and like the reason I think you'll illustrations will so fucking unsettling is because so many of them, as we've discussed, are from actual images, and it has almost the restraint and minimalism of, say, typing on Twitter. Well, the grotesque section of the illustration is, it doesn't take over the image usually. It's something kind of small, and sometimes you don't even realize it until you take a second look, and that's really cool and unsettling.
Thank you. Yeah, I found just through like feedback from people that they almost like it best when they actually have to like hunt for what's wrong in the image.
Yeah.
Like a really horrible Where's Waldo, I've heard referred to as. Because just having me post it now means that there's something awful in there somewhere. So it's like a hunt for it, and I've seen people say it's like a jump scare they give themselves from a still image, which is really flattering.
Have you thought about posting anything without anything unsettling on it, just to fuck with people?
I did that once, and I felt really bad, and then I just deleted it in like 10 minutes. But I did a whole like really dramatic flavor text for it, and just to make people like. And I even like I think I indicated where in the image through the text where it would be, but there was nothing there. It was too mean spirited, so I just deleted it. I think it was from April Fool's, actually.
That makes sense. That's really mean, but also extremely funny. Before we hopped on Skype, I was just going through a bunch of your images again one last time, and my stepson, who's 12, passed by, and I said, "Look, I'm going to talk to this guy. Look at his images," and he said, "Oh, that's disgusting." And I said, "Well, what about this image? This one's fine." And he looked at it. And you saw, oh yeah, there's nothing spooky on this one. And then he realized a siren head was in the background. He went, ah!
Amazing.
I said, what questions should I ask this guy? He said, why would he do that? And he just walked away. So
I don't know. I'm sorry. Some compulsion.
You have a lot of your illustrations have like pieces of microfiction in them. Have you have you done much other fiction writing at all?
No, not at all actually. I'm super intimidated to do anything longer than a Twitter post now after doing that for so long. It was kind of like since I haven't really written any fiction at all, to start doing those was kind of a test to see if I could do it in small measures. Though I would really like to expand on it in the future. Last year, I was trying to put together a project that was going to have some monsters from these photos in it, and hopefully like pitch it to some places. But it kind of fell apart. But hopefully in the future.
Yeah, I hope you do, man. That would be awesome. I would.
Yeah.
I know I would like it. I know many other people would like it. I mean, come on, man. You have a TV tropes page.
I do. Jesus, it's insane.
I have one little question as far as the illustrations go, and
Yeah.
What do you think the difference is with making daylight unsettling compared to night settings?
It's so much harder. First of all, like, well, I mean, if I'm doing it off of the photo, it's already way harder to make it look right, to blend it together well. It's like 3 times as hard. You drawing on like shadow or darkness, it's like infinitely easier to blend the two together. So I always feel good when one comes together in a daylight shot. But I also feel like when that happens, it is a lot scarier because it really plays into the mundane nature of the scene and helps stuff that it wouldn't normally be scary. Like a night scene might be naturally more scary. So by having something really awful there, just in like the broad light of day, I think it can be more effective if you can pull it off. It's hard.
Yeah, daylight is my favorite genre, I would say. So I'm always stoked when I see you do some of those. I do feel like it has to be so much more difficult, which is maybe why I appreciate it more. I don't know. It's great.
Yeah, I also really, really love daylight horror. Some of my favorite horror movies are not set at night in any way. They're just like set in the blaze of like noon.
Yeah.
It's really a very particular atmosphere. and it's hard to pull off no matter what.
Yeah,
I like that the very first Siren Head image I ever did is a daylight shot, though. I'm happy about that.
it's a good one. I don't know. I guess I guess we're supposed to feel safe in the daylight, so maybe that's
Yeah,
what makes it so more unsettling.
absolutely. Yeah, it's like it makes daylight seem like a false sense. Gives it a false sense of security, I guess.
Do you have anything else you want to promote at all?
Um, no, at the moment I don't have anything, any bigger projects coming up. I'm just like working on my freelance career and stuff during the pandemic. Um, yeah, no, I'm just gonna keep posting spooky stuff on social media for now.
All right. Well, we will keep looking at them and creating random stories and explanations for why they exist without your consent.
Amazing, thank you.
No problem. How can folks find you online? What's your Twitter handle? Slimy
Uh,
Swamp Ghost.
Slimy Swamp Ghost on Twitter, and I'm probably most active on Twitter, and I'm also on Instagram just at Trevor Henderson, because I thought you could change your Instagram name after you made it, but you cannot. So that's just Trevor Henderson, and I guess that's the two big ones to reach out to. Yeah,
Great. Thank you so much for doing this. This was great.
of course. Yeah, thank you so much. This was really really great.
Alright, thank you for listening to a new episode of Ghoulish. If you liked what you just ingested through the brain waves, why don't you go leave a review on iTunes? You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/PMM Publishing. We also publish books at perpetualpublishing.com. So if you're sick of listening to sounds, you can read text with the eyeballs. Does that sound creepy? You fucking better believe it, baby!
Live spooky, die spooky.